You're watching VinylicPumaGaming. What's up guys, back with another video, and today I wanted to discuss some of the major changes, retcons, and possibly even a few breaks to the lore that were introduced with Fallout 4. Now, some of these changes are fairly minor, and in fact, you could argue that some of the changes made gameplay a little bit better. Now, other changes don't have an immense effect on the story, but are sort of funny considering that Bethesda broke their own lore a couple times, but there are also a few changes that did upset a number of people within the community, to say the very least. Keep in mind, this video will be discussing retcons to the lore from previous games. I think it should also be mentioned that some of the previous games are unclear on certain aspects of the lore as well, particularly when it comes to things like Ghouls, where it's unclear as to whether they were created through FEV or your typical radiation exposure. I'd say more about Ghouls, but I don't want to spoil any of this video. So what I will say is that both Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 do on occasion contradict their own lore from time to time. Even New Vegas will sometimes contradict previously established lore from Fallout 1 and Fallout 2 as well, and I think we can all agree that New Vegas was pretty consistent on the lore in the first place. So as always, go into this video with an open mind, and these will be the top 8 lore breaks, lore problems, lore inconsistencies, and retcons in Fallout 4 starting now. Number 8. Laser weapons and weapons in general. Now, this is a pretty obvious change, but due to the nature of how Fallout 4 handles its weapons and allows the player to customize them in a wide variety of ways, it's possible that much of the pre-established lore surrounding many weapons is now broken. In Fallout 4, laser weapons are essentially one and the same, with the only difference between a pistol and a rifle being a simple change from a rifle stock to a pistol grip. In previous Fallout games, the laser rifle was known as the AER-9 and used microfusion cells as ammunition. You also had the AEP-7 laser pistol, which used energy cells as ammunition. Now, both weapons were different and used entirely different ammunition until this was changed in Fallout 4. Now, on the one hand, it's nice that Bethesda did streamline ammunition for energy weapons. Laser weapons now use fusion cells, while plasma weapons use a new ammo type called plasma cartridges. Before, it was much more complicated as you had 3 different ammo types for very similar weapons. However, it's unclear whether energy cells, electron charge packs, also known as ECP, or the other weapons that used them even existed. It's worth noting that ECP was originally introduced by Bethesda, however energy cells were a staple of the franchise from Fallout 1 to New Vegas and appeared in every game until Fallout 4. Now, to be fair, weapons tend to change a lot from game to game. Some ammo and weapon types appear and disappear in later installments, presumably for the sake of game balance. Many weapons like 9mm pistols, and even some real-world weapons like the FAL, seem to come and go from each respective game. While I would say that this isn't particularly egregious or anything, and in some ways I actually really like this change, it is definitely a change to what's been established in previous entries. Number 7. T60 Power Armor and Power Armor in general. So, T60 Power Armor was newly added in Fallout 4 and retcons the previously established lore that T51 was the pinnacle of pre-war power armor. Of course, this was the case until the Quantum X1 retcon retconned the T60 Power Armor retcon. More on this later. It's clear based on the amount of painted power armor suits that T51 did seem to be the most common type of power armor before the war. However, as the player enters Vault 111 for the first time, you can encounter soldiers wearing T60 armor, meaning that at the very least, T60 had surpassed T51 as the pinnacle of pre-war power armor. This is a case where Fallout 4's loading screens seem to contradict themselves somewhat, as the loading screen for T51 clearly says that T51 was the pinnacle of mechanized protection before the Great War. And yet, you can see the superior T60 armor being worn by soldiers before the bombs fell, and the game's loading screens also say that the T60 series of power armor saw extensive use by the United States Army after the Battle of Anchorage. This would indicate that T60 was around for 6 to 8 months or so, assuming the Battle of Anchorage ended in January of 2077. Power Armor in general is also a lot different from other games in the sense that Power Armor is now more of a mechanized suit or vehicle you enter, and apparently you don't have to acquire Power Armor training from any NPCs in order to use it. And the same thing goes for all of the other NPCs in the game, including raiders. Anyone can enter Power Armor, it appears. In previous games, Power Armor was more like traditional armor in the sense that it was more like a suit of armor and you needed Power Armor training in order to wear it. As far as T51 is concerned, it supposedly used TX28 microfusion packs, which were done away with due to the introduction of Fallout 4's fusion core tech. At the end of the day, Power Armor has seen a lot of retcons in Fallout 4. Number 6. Cats. In Fallout New Vegas, there's a line of dialogue spoken by Mr. House that seems to indicate that cats are extinct. When Mr. House asks about what the courier did to the boomers, the courier replies with, "I had to wipe out their leadership," to which Mr. House replies with, "There's more than one way to skin a cat," as the saying goes. Or went, that is, cats being extinct. I don't promote political assassination as a first option, but it has a long and storied history. I'll consider the boomers neutralized. In Fallout 4, you can frequently see cats throughout the game. In fact, the very first time you enter Vault 81, there is a cat named Ashes that escapes the vault, and you're tasked with retrieving him during the quest Here Kitty Kitty. There are also a bunch of cats located in Diamond City inside Hawthorne's house. So it's not like cats only exist inside Fallout 4's vaults, it also appears that cats also exist outside of the vaults and out in the Commonwealth as well. At the end of the day, Mr. House says that cats are extinct, and they don't seem to appear in any of the Fallout games until Fallout 4. Where there are mentions of cats in Fallout 2, it's part of a quest called Listen to Stacy's Kitty Story. And from what we can tell, Stacy isn't very old, and presumably, cats may have actually survived the Great War, only to be eaten by people because I guess they tasted good. At least that's what we can infer. But of course, this contradicts what Mr. House said, so to be fair, you could say this is all pretty unclear. I'm going to agree with Mr. House though, as it is the most recent prequel to Fallout, and say that cats are indeed extinct, thus cats in Fallout 4 is sort of a lore break. Number 5. Ghouls, Typhon, and the little boy in the fridge. Now, at one point, this subject actually caused quite a bit of controversy and sparked a small Twitter exchange between Pete Hines, who is the vice president of PR and marketing for Bethesda Softworks, and a couple Twitter users and fans of the Fallout franchise. As I said in the very beginning of this video, some aspects of the lore for Ghouls is somewhat ambiguous. The people that argue that this is a lore break cite an NPC from Fallout 2 named Typhon, who was the son of Set. Now, Set was the leader of the Necropolis from the very first Fallout game. And both Typhon and Set survived the bombs but were mutated into ghouls. Before the war, Typhon was a child when he was initially mutated, yet he eventually grew up and became an adult ghoul. In Fallout 4, you can meet a pre-war ghoul child that gets locked in a fridge by the name of Billy Peabody. Billy is part of the quest called Kid in a Fridge, where you can either sell him to the Gunners, or you can return him to his pre-war ghoul parents. If Fallout 4's Billy Peabody followed some of the lore established in Fallout 2, then this NPC should have grown up while he was locked in the fridge. Many also contend that Billy should not have survived this ordeal due to the fact that ghouls still need food and water. However, there are cases of ghouls in Fallout 2 being able to survive without food and water, and their names are Woody and Coffin Willie. Both of these characters were seemingly either prepared for burial or successfully buried, and while it's unknown how long they were incapacitated for, they did seem to survive for an extended period of time without food or water, so it's plausible that Billy Peabody could have survived for 200 years in a fridge. However, I'm going to say that this is a bit of a lore break though. Billy Peabody should have aged like Typhon did from Fallout 2. Number 4. Potatoes. In Fallout 3, you can go to the Rivet City Science Lab and you will find potatoes on one of the tables. This room is the same one where you first encountered Dr. Madison Lee for the very first time in Fallout 3. One of the NPCs in this room, Janice Kaplinsky, is the head botanist, and it's revealed through her dialogue that she runs hydroponic gardens that produce the various vegetables that appear on the tables. In fact, potatoes are a consumable item in Fallout 3 that restore some health. There's also another consumable item known as potato crisps, which are presumably made from pre-war potatoes, and unlike fresh potatoes, these heal for less and inflict radiation damage upon their consumption. Now, in Fallout 4, there is a terminal in the Prydwen known as the Botany Terminal, and it accounts for several of the various plants that the player can acquire throughout the game. On the entry for Tato, it reads, "According to some old botany texts we found, this appears to be a combination of a now extinct plant called a potato and another extinct plant called a tomato. The outside looks like a tomato, but the inside is brown. Tastes as absolutely disgusting as it looks, but it will keep you from starving." Assuming Fallout 4 is in the same universe as Fallout 3 and the West Coast Fallout games, potatoes should exist. I also find this amusing because the Brotherhood of Steel came on the Prydwen from the Capital Wasteland where Rivet City is located. I also think it's hilarious that Fallout 4's Contraptions DLC allows the player to make potato crisps and preserved Instamash with the food processor using Tatos, despite the fact that they aren't actually potatoes. So wouldn't they be Tato crisps instead of potato crisps? Now, okay, fine, I know this isn't really a big deal, but in one game they clearly do exist, and the next game they clearly don't. Number 3. Vertibirds. The lore behind Vertibirds is very confusing and very contradictory. Ultimately, this isn't just a Fallout 4 lore issue, but it's also an issue with the lore as it pertains to Fallout 3 too. According to Fallout 3, there is a placard in the Museum of Technology that states that the Vertibird, or XVBO2, is a prototype military transport vehicle being developed by the US military. In fact, this same placard states that the Vertibird is the most advanced aircraft of its kind ever developed, and the military hopes to press them into service by 2085. Ironically, Fallout 3's Operation Anchorage DLC breaks Fallout 3's own lore by having a group of troops land in XVBO2 Vertibirds during the Anchorage simulation. The very Vertibird used by the Enclave in Fallout 2, Fallout 3, and Fallout New Vegas. As for Fallout 4, a Vertibird lands just as the sole survivor is about to enter Vault 111, and what's even more confusing is that this appears to be an entirely different model of Vertibird than what was seen in Fallout 2, Fallout 3, and New Vegas. It's currently unclear as to whether this is the same model of Vertibird that appeared in previous games, or whether it's an earlier iteration, thus an entirely different model from the models that appear in previous games. If it's the exact same model of Vertibird that has been modified in such a way as to adopt Fallout 4's aesthetic, then this is clearly a lore break from what was previously established in Fallout 3. At the very least, it is a retcon. Number 2. Advanced Power Armor and XO1 Power Armor. Now, this is where Fallout 4's own lore breaks itself and breaks much of the pre-established lore from previous games. It was long believed that the Advanced Power Armor and XO1 Power Armor were one and the same, and that XO1 was a post-war power armor that was developed by the Enclave, aka the remnants of the US military. This is even stated in one of Fallout 4's loading screens, which reads, "The XO1 series of power armor was specially engineered and employed by remnants of the US military after the Great War, and offers increased protection over the older, pre-war models." However, with the introduction of Fallout 4's Nuka World DLC, it's possible for the player to enter one of the amusement parks, known as the Galactic Zone, and in the very center, there's a case that contains XO1 power armor that was presumably there before the bombs dropped. This is further backed up by the fact that there is a terminal in Brad Burton's office that reads as follows. Meacham's work with Project Cobalt struck gold. His team came up with a custom isotope based on strontium-90 he is calling Quantum. He believes he can use the isotope to weaponize almost anything in the military's arsenal. He's come up with a few prototypes like the Nuka Nuke, and we've even used the Quantum to enhance one of the military's power armor suits. From this, we can deduce that the Quantum XO1 in the display case is pre-war power armor, meaning that XO1 is now pre-war as opposed to post-war. Now, there are plenty of speculation videos made by others and myself that discuss the nature of this lore break and attempt to rationalize it in some way. What I will say is, at the very least, I think we can all agree that this is clearly a retcon that will have interesting effects on the pre-established lore going forward. Number 1. Jet. So, Jet is a long-established drug in the Fallout franchise. Jet was created in Fallout 2 by an NPC by the name of Myron as a means of gaining control over a mining town within the game. When the Chosen One questions Myron about Jet's development, it's revealed that Jet is a byproduct of Brahmin fertilizer, or more accurately, Brahmin shit. The events of Fallout 2 occur in the year 2241, which is about 36 years before Fallout 3 and 46 years before the events of Fallout 4. So what we can conclude is that Jet was a drug that was developed after the Great War that ended all civilization. In Fallout 4, however, there is a terminal located at the Vault-Tec regional headquarters that belongs to Dr. Reed that indicates something different. A terminal entry for September 29th reads, "So we just shipped 15 cases of Psycho and Jet to Vault 95. Of course, that makes total sense. Let's give these addicts more of what put them in this situation to begin with." Davidson says it's to force them to make the hard choice, chems or get clean. I say it's to cause a bloodbath. As we just established with Fallout 2, Jet was created by Myron and didn't exist before the Great War. Somehow, though, Jet, a post-war drug, is being delivered to a pre-war vault just months before the bombs fell. Not only does this not work because Myron didn't exist before the war, but also because Brahmin didn't exist before the war either. Now, the only explanation here that might make sense is that Jet's effects in Fallout 4 are different from its effects in previous Fallout games. That said, Jet affects the player differently in each game, yet still shares the same appearance of a gray inhaler combined with a red chamber. You also might be able to make the argument that Myron was able to make Jet because of a protein extract that appeared in cows before the Great War, and how if these got contaminated in any way, it would create effects similar to Jet. I would say at the end of the day, I'm going to say that this is a retcon in the lore that undermines pre-established lore from Fallout 2. Perhaps Bethesda will explain Jet's origins more in depth, because there is a way to making it pre-war, but ultimately, we're just going to have to see. Alright guys, that's going to pretty much wrap up this particular video. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like, and as always, take care, and I'll see y'all next time.